Well, the government has declared it won't give in to coercion after China threatened economic retaliation for Australia's pandemic probe push. Any Chinese boycott could cost the economy billions, but both the Coalition and Labor are determined not to be deterred by Beijing's backlash.
The Australia-China relationship is frequently characterised as complicated, but this warning from the Chinese ambassador shifted the dial from complex to coercion.
So it's up to the people to decide. Maybe the ordinary people will see, why should we drink Australian wine, eat Australian beef?
Cheng Jingye threatening a consumer boycott of Australia's industry and products in retaliation to its push for an international inquiry into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Department of Foreign Affairs Secretary overnight rang the ambassador to personally voice Australia's alarm.
The government is disappointed with the statements by the Chinese ambassador. They were inappropriate in terms of suggesting or intimating that there is potentially some form of economic coercion that China might seek to apply to Australia.
Not apologising or backing down, despite Australia currently being the lone leading voice for a post-pandemic probe.
There isn't any witch hunt here. There is simply asking legitimate questions about what's happened to over 2 million people that have been infected by this.
Labor also refusing to kowtow to Beijing's boycott threat.
This is not a time to have a propaganda push from the Chinese embassy and from the Chinese Foreign Service. The time is now to have an understanding of how this pandemic came about.
But with China accounting for a quarter of all Australian exports, there's concerns about what would happen if the reality matched the rhetoric. Food exports to China alone are $12 billion annually, with the Treasury Secretary reminding any breakaway from Beijing would be costly.
But we also shouldn't forget that it's valuable to Australia to be complementary to Chinese growth.
So don't deprive your country of the best in the world. We have it here. We're prepared to have a mature conversation. We're prepared to have that in a sensible way.
Relations between Canberra and Beijing have been in the deep freeze for several years, exacerbated by Australia's action against Huawei and foreign interference. Now the coronavirus has become the latest flashpoint in foreign tensions, with no sign either nation is prepared to back down. Eliza Edwards, Sky News, Canberra.